Before we get started today, I just want to do a quick survey of the room. How many people here are developers? I'm expecting a lot because it's a React conference. All right, most of you, all of you. How about designers, product designers? We got a little sprinkle. How about some other disciplines like executives or product managers? We got a couple in the back. Great. Well, thanks for sharing that with me, folks. So out of everybody here, who has heard about or worked with design systems before? Raise of hands. All right, most of you, there's some hands that hasn't been raised. Well, don't worry, for those of you who don't know what a design system is, that's what we're gonna start the talk off. We're gonna define what a design system is for a front-end developer. And then we're gonna push the envelope just a little bit further. We're gonna talk about using these data-driven design systems in practice. My name is June. I'm a developer advocate for Omlet. For those of you who don't know, Omlet is a component analytics tool for front-end teams who are working on design systems. I'm joined by Hosh'ki today. He's a design system engineer at Optimizely, an early user for Omlet, and he's a Coachella DJ that has skipped this year to be here with us today. So Hosh'ki, thanks for joining us today here with me at React Miami. Can you take a little minute to introduce yourself and a little bit about what Optimizely does?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Hosh'ki. I'm a design system engineer at Optimizely. Like June said, I come from music background, so you might think I'm used to being in front of people, but this is different.
This is first time speaking.
Yeah, it's pretty nervous, but let's do it. Woo-hoo. Yeah, so you might know Optimizely as more of like an A/B testing company, but we actually do more than that now. So we do like personalization, optimization of website, and we even have like a CMS now too. So it's more like an all-in-one solution for web experimentation.
Cool. Yeah, I had no idea you guys went into CMS and all that kind of other stuff. That's great. That's great to hear. So for those of you who don't know what a design system is, Hosh'ki, can you take a little minute to define what a design system means to you?
Yeah, so the definition of design system is probably different depending on the organization and the teams. But in general, design system is a collection of reusable components, guidelines, and principles that helps maintain consistency and scalability of digital products. And it is very important for Optimizely because we acquired like a few companies in the last few years, and all those like different looking products are brought into like a product line. So we needed the design system to kind of put them together and give it the unified feel and the look to it.
Got it. So speaking of design systems, today we're going to talk about three things. The first thing we're going to talk about is some of the challenges Optimizely faced when creating a design system from the ground up. Second, we're going to share how Omlet is helping Optimizely create a data-driven design system. And lastly, Hosh'ki is going to share the business impact of using Omlet. So Hosh'ki, before we go into the challenges you faced, can you share with our friends here a little bit about the design systems team at Optimizely and a little bit about the Axiom component library?
Sure. Yeah. So the design system at Optimizely is called Axiom, and it's been around like 5-6 years, maybe longer. But yeah, the name changed, and we are calling it Axiom, and it's the new design systems. And my team is made of 4 people, 3 developers and 1 designer, and we are like fully remote team, so we are located all over the world. And yeah, and we had a new team too. All of us joined the company last year. So, and we inherited the code base. So there's like a lot of things we don't know yet. So yeah. And Axiom includes React components and design tokens and the guidelines like documentation.
Great. So it sounds like you had an old design system in the back, and now you have a new design system called Axiom.
Yeah.
And you actually have a team behind it now, because before you probably had to distribute between maybe some designers or maybe some front-end developers, but now you have a team that owns it, which is great. Can you share really quickly where you store all your components?
Sure. Yeah. So probably just like every other team, we use a storybook to store all the components and do testing and stuff too. And we have this like one pager. We list up like a lot of components, and there's like tabs, buttons, and typographies, all those components. And we also use Storybook to kind of like a documentation purpose too. If you go into like individual story, there's like, the definition of what component that is, and there's like props and how to use them. And also if you scroll down, there's like a, usage guideline, in this situation, you should use this state of the component. All that.
Great. So are these all your new Axiom components, or are these your old legacy components?
Oh yeah, these are all like new Axiom components.
Got it. And around how many components do you have right now?
There's about 50 to 60 around there.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing your Storybook instance with us, Hosh'ki. That really colors the picture of where you put your component library in. So a design system, I think, is a product, is an internal product that kind of fuels your internal team to produce better, faster products, more consistent, and it's on brand. But just like any product, there might be some roadblocks and challenges along the way.
Yeah.
Hosh'ki, can you share some of the things that you encountered?
Yeah, so like I said, Optimizer has two design systems. One is new Axiom design systems, and one come from acquisition. So we encourage teams to start using the new Axiom components, but all those legacy code base, it's kind of hard to adapt them like right away. So we needed some way to identify those like older legacy components in more of an automated way. And also, our current goal is to visualize the component adoption percentage, so Axiom components versus custom components or legacy components, and the component usage, and also the impact of updating the components. Can we update this component safely without affecting other part of the code, or the product? Yeah.
So it seems like there was a lot of factors that are going around that you had to kind of juggle with.
Yeah.
What was going on in your mind at that point to start thinking of a solution like ours?
Yeah, so when we started this initiative, we realized, it's gonna take a lot of, effort to like achieve all of these. It requires, like getting all the data and visualizing everything. So like, yeah, and with the lean team like ours, it could have been like, really long-term goal. So yeah, and then we just came across Omlet, just perfect timing. It was just released back then as a beta. So yeah, I'm more curious, like why you guys decided to build Omlet?
Yeah, great. That's a great question, Hosh'ki. Thanks for asking. So over the few years, I've spoken to a lot of design system teams from companies like Optimizely, companies like GitHub, Segment, and Shopify. And there are like three major themes I heard. The first one is to track adoption over time. And like Hosh'ki mentioned, you have to do a lot of custom work, a lot of heavy lifting to kind of stand that up. Secondly, folks don't have detailed usage information about a component to make decisions on whether to improve them or maybe to even deprecate them. And lastly, if they do make changes or introduce new components into a design system, they don't know if they're effective. They don't know if they're being adopted. So those are reasons why we built Omlet.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm so glad I found a solution like Omlet right when we needed it. So yeah, should we just go into the demo?
Yeah, let's hop in over the demo. We'll play a little musical chairs. I'm going to take control for a little bit, and I'll just show you just the overall application. I'm going to pass it back to Hosh'ki so he can share his instance of running Omlet in Optimizely. So we are start off with this component adoption over time chart here. And this is a pretty useful chart to track your core versus your custom components. And then we have your core versus custom adoption by project. There's also some usage information on the bottom over time. And on the top, we have our components tab. And here, you could look up any of the components within Omlet, and we could drill down into a dependency tree, which Hosh'ki is going to show just a little bit. So Hosh'ki, why don't you take control again, and we could show off Omlet with Optimizely.
Yeah.
So Hosh'ki, can you tell us a little bit about the setup?
Yeah, so the setting up Omlet is extremely easy. So you just need to run the client CLI command, and install Omlet globally. And then once it's installed, you just go into each code base and then run analysis command in there. And at the end of analysis, there's it just gives you this URL, and you can click on that, and it takes you to this dashboard UI. And having this dashboard is very helpful to communicate this information to the stakeholders.
Cool. So it looks like there's a little checklist here on the right-hand side, right, to show you that all the steps have been completed. And I just want to kind of double click into your point that you just said about why stakeholders are kind of embracing this.
Yeah, so we tried like a few other solutions too, but all of them are more like a text-based or JSON format. So even though it's like a very useful information, it was very difficult to communicate that to the stakeholders.
Yeah, not everyone is equipped to decipher a JSON file or maybe just scroll through a bunch of text. So yeah, that definitely makes sense. How about we switch over to our first topic, which is adoption over time. So you mentioned that tracking adoption is really important for your overall health score.
Yeah.
Can you share how Omlet has been helping you out with this?
Yeah, so the Omlet just gives you this predefined chart, just like on the fly. Just if you go into there, it's already available. And the important metrics for us right now is the top one, adoption over time, and secondly, the core versus custom adoption by project. So yeah, and we also needed to know the number of usage of the per components in each project. So this is not predefined on this UI, but it's very easy to customize the filter in Omlet. So yeah, just just by changing the filter, I can extract those information.
Awesome. So I'm glad they got Omlet running up so quickly. I'm not really sure what these green and yellow colors mean.
Yeah.
So can you share with the audience what that entails?
Sure. So the green area actually means it's a core components, which means or the components that come from Axiom design systems. And the yellow area is more of third-party components, or it could be legacy components, or maybe it's the components that define locally within just that code base.
Cool. So is the process to kind of get the green turning higher over time in hopes that people will use more of your Axiom components?
Yeah, exactly.
Great, great. So if you didn't have Omlet, how would you go about solving this?
It would have been very, very difficult. Yeah. So adoption over time is usually very difficult to track because it requires capturing data in a cadence and storing the data somewhere and then visualize it using like D3 or Chart.js or any kind of library like that. And the adoption rate by project is also difficult to achieve without heavy lifting, like crawling through the code base and counting each instances and stuff. And there are other solutions too, but as far as I know, none of them provides this already pre-made UI. So Omlet covers like all of those criteria, and and it just comes out of the box. So it was very helpful.
Great. Yeah, I'm glad you got up and running very quickly. How about we switch over to our second topic, which is detecting similar components.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked before, and you showed me in your design system that there's a lot of duplicate components, like your grid component. How are you going about addressing these issues?
Yeah, so for that, I use this component list view. So there's like a filters, and I already preset the filters. So what this is doing is I'm looking for the components that come from Episerver UI framework, which is our legacy component library. And I'm looking for those components within this one of our core products called Episerver CMS. So from this view, you can already see there's like multiple components. Those custom means all the legacy components and a number of instances. And based on this information, we can think about strategy of like how to replace them or what to do with those legacy components. And also, this information is helpful to make kind of like a projection of like how adoption rate could go up if you replace all these. So like if you see like the projected number of like if you replace all these, then your green area could go up by this percentage. That kind of encourages people to teams to adopt more. So
great. So it looks like this has your old legacy components, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And your old design system and all your new Axiom components. Just curious, how many components do you have now in Omlet?
There's so many. Just for this product, there's like hundreds of them in here, and each instance is like 40, 29 and stuff, and times product. So probably like there's hundreds. If anything, it could be like 1,000.
Oh, that makes sense because you acquired some companies earlier on, and you probably have to make it all consistent and on brand. Cool. How about we go into the dependency tree view? So let's double click into that.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, identifying the duplicate components is one thing, but another thing we need to be careful as a design system engineer is like if we can update this component safely. Without having this kind of information, updating components is pretty scary because like if you update it, it could affect like other products or like other part of the code base too. So yeah, so from this view, you can kind of see this is more like a relationship between the components that you're updating to and how it would affect other components. So having this kind of like visualization helps us to be more confident about if we can safely update these components and have the teams use it.
Cool. So you can kind of zoom in here, right? Because the text is a little small. Yeah. Great. So this kind of gives you that 3,000 aerial feet view, and you can see all the regressions that may happen, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And it kind of guides you on like what you could, what you could do and what you should not touch.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great. All right. Let's move on to our last point, which is migration. So understanding the usage of each Axiom component is super important because it helps you prioritize, what to put more resources behind it, maybe something to deprecate. Can you double click at this point and share how you go about doing this?
Sure. So the Omlet provides this very useful chart, components sorted by the usage. And I'm filtering this just with the core components, which means like the components that come from Axiom design systems. So, this gives you like, which components being used more. And if it's the components that being used more, that means it should be prioritized with the maintenance. And another useful information is like if you go down the list, you can see all these like lesser used components, and some of them are not used at all, like 0 times used. So we can use this information to create kind of like a possibly deprecable components list. So yeah, we use it for this kind of purpose too.
Got it. So like, are these part of like your old legacy components that probably aren't being used, or maybe used maybe once or twice?
Right. Yeah.
And then the hopes is to remove these to make your design system leaner.
Exactly.
So then it's easily adoptable, and there's not thousands of components, maybe just a few hundreds.
Yeah, exactly. It's the bundle size is another issue too. Like if you remove all these, the bundle size is going to shrink too. So.
Well, thanks for sharing that. How about we go into the business impact? So can you share with our friends here a little bit of the results you're getting by using Omlet?
Sure. So the initial round of Omlet analysis gave us like a lot of insight about how it's being used and stuff, and some of them are surprising, like finding out like which components are not being used and how many are there, and also like which teams are using more of design systems and which teams are using less of it. So now we have those informations, we are ready to like start planning on like how to improve the system, and also like how to help the teams to remove those like pain points so that they can adapt it easy. Yeah, so we are kind of going by the saying, if you can't measure it, you can improve it.
I love that line. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. There's been a lot of measurement talks over the past couple of days, so I think it's on brand. And going back to your Coachella days, maybe we should make a T-shirt and maybe some merch later on you could sell on. Great. So there's 3 things that we talked about. So it seems like the first thing is like measuring your component adoption over time really solve that tracking issue you had before, and you didn't have to require that heavy lifting. And then you're able to detect similar components in your design system and replace them with your Axiom components in hopes to improve adoption to get more into the green, less of the yellow. And lastly, now with data, what components to prioritize, because you know the usage, right? So like you mentioned before, what resources to put behind, and maybe like those one or very least used components, you probably should deprecate that.
Right.
So I'm curious, after you got a lot of benefit from using Omlet, do any of your higher ups say anything about your initiative that you're spearheading this design system thing?
Yeah, so we recently had a little bit of a reorg, and then my team became part of an engineering team. Before it was like it was a product team. So our CTO is interested in knowing the overall progress of Axiom adoption, so he can encourage teams to like adapt more. And also my team needed some kind of visualization to understand how our design system is doing too. So yeah, everything the Omlet covers all of them, and just happened to be there, just perfect timing. So
great. So let's look to the future a little bit, and let's play a little make-believe. So if you were the CEO of Omlet and you had full control of the roadmap, what feature would you like to see the most?
Yeah, the first thing is definitely GitHub integration. We have so many repositories across the organization, and it just takes so much time to just manually run the analysis on each repo. So yeah, if I could just add it to the GitHub level and then just automate that process, it's going to be a huge time saver for us. And also another thing is a prop usage tracking. So if we could see, how teams are using those components by analyzing the prop usage, we can come up with a strategy for how to improve those components too. And I'm so curious, what's on the roadmap of Omlet for the future releases?
Yeah, great question, Hosh'ki. Thanks for asking. So right now, our immediate goal is to provide more visibility to component adoption. And to extend this, we are considering things like prop usage, like you mentioned, Hosh'ki, design token support, as well as other framework support, because we only support React right now, but we're looking into Vue and Angular as well. And looking a little bit further down the line, we are very feedback-driven. So encourage you folks to kind of try it out. We'll share a little bit of a QR code to set up you in the beta program, but we take all that feedback and we use that to figure out what we're going to build next. So Hosh'ki, do you have any final words you want to say to the audience here?
Yeah, so Optimizely recently released a new feature called Rollout, and Rollout is a free feature flagging platform. Comes with like managing features in one place and targeting specific user groups, or like if there's any errors, there's a quick recovery mode too. And the best thing is it doesn't require any credit card or payment, so it's just free feature. So if you want to try it, just go on the website and start using it.
It's great, and it was released today or recently?
Yeah. It was released, yeah.
Great. Well, Hosh'ki, thank you so much for joining me here today. It was awesome presenting with you. Here's a QR code, like I promised, so go ahead and click on the QR code, and we'll set you up in the beta program. Hosh'ki and I will be here all day and even through the celebration. So if you want to talk about design systems, feel free to approach us. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.